Hello, Active Sage here on the Sage channel. That is Sleep, Art, Game, and Eat. Yes, indeed, I have absolutely decided I'm bringing it back in one way or the other. Anyhow, it is back. And we're here today to look at a large ship I've thrown together, a civilian ship, and we're actually going to start out with the pieces way over here that I originally started building with, a little modular piece. As you know, I like modular constructs, and I took it about, copy and pasted, cut it about, and there you go, stuck a bunch of it together. Was quite liking, but decided I needed to break it up a little bit. So I went ahead and merged those top pieces together a little bit, and so instead of having a dash in between each of these semicircular pieces, we'd have a solid piece there, and then we'd have larger sections. A bit longer. You'll also notice those circular pieces that I'm talking about. Those are using Rivvion's, R-I-V-V-I-O-N, I believe is how you spell his name. He went ahead and came up with the idea, or at least I was the first person, or he was the first person I ever saw use the idea of putting a rotor or a hinge at an angle. That way you could attach parts to your ship at an angle. So I went ahead and started working with that. It was the whole idea of the ship is that I'd be using those to add some decorations. I might use that again in the future. You can see over here I went ahead and started adding more breakup to it, and we started building out the whole shape of the ship. You'll notice that even though it almost seems symmetrical top bottom at first, it is actually different, and the fact that we have a singular horizontal flat plane here, and we have a, well, 4, I believe it is, blocks right here, breaking up the lower area, giving it a slightly different shape. Not exactly ideal, but in the future we'll probably build different ships using this similar design of breakup where the bottom will stick out even farther downwards, or the top maybe. Anyway, came over here, did some more tweaks to the thing, and started building it out, and that's when we come to, outright, I was adding on the engines. Look from the top, you can see, pop up, suddenly these thrusters start sticking out of the back and the front, almost like two little stubby arms and two little legs sticking out of the back. All very, very stubbities. Almost reminds me of those big fat people from The Littlest Nightmare. Anyhow, moving on from that, we started working on the interior a bit. You can see we actually started putting thrusters in here, oodles of hydrogen systems to allow the ship to function, in theory, in atmosphere or in space, and we added a hangar door to the back of it. Carrying on from there, we started really building it out. So you can see now we have oodles of thrusters in there and this weird, almost, I don't know, insectoid growth that breaks down into it, which I think is really interesting. You have this almost organic shape in the middle of a very flat surface on the back of a very angular ship. I also put some lights sticking out over the thing and below it. And a little tiny oopsie doodle dandy there, ignore that. And you can see on all of these, I've gone ahead and actually stuck weapons in now. So we have a bunch of these little things to help defend it. This is a civilian ship, but I figured, well, these are anti-fighter turrets. They should allow the ship to at least give it some defense. And the number of them means it should be able to actually repel any sort of a medium attack that comes at it. Anyway, moving on back to the front of the ship, you'll see now we've stuck this sort of slit here where you have a different floors that can actually see into, and our antenna at the very bottom of it. And I've actually gone ahead and now put in an interior to the ship. We'll be doing a tour of that in just 1 second here. Coming all the way over to here, this is the finished version. Not much has changed between this version and the one we just looked at to the left. It's still a pretty hefty beast, hydrogen tanks at the top. Only real change here is that we have a connector point right there, and the lights on the inside of the ship, which you cannot actually see. Oh, right, and I also fixed that little weird thing I said not to look at, because that was one hydrogen thruster on the inside of the ship that was sticking downwards, causing us grief. Anyway, now that we've gone ahead and looked at the exterior ship, let's do a Shift K. Go to the terminal, say hangar door, and we should say main hangar doors, and let's go ahead and tell you guys to open up, and there we go, the inside of our ship we can now properly explore. You got a glimpse at this from afar as we went past the previous version with no lights. Now you can see oodles of lights. We went kind of crazy with lights on the inside. It's something I end up doing is where I often have just gray ships, but I usually do some more lighting on the inside of them with a sort of bluish lights to give it some color. Anyway, in here you can see it's a lovely big hangar. On the walls you can see we have tons of oxygen tanks as well as oxygen generators, the ice generators where they take the ice and break it down. Yes, ice generator would be completely wrong. It's ice melters. But you can also see we have a ton of vents. So if we go to this silly control panel right here with all of these windows and glass stuck about it, well, I guess glass is on the lights because I was trying to say lights there. But either way, the singular window and the lights, go ahead and press this button first off and close that door. We'll turn on our UI and press H a few times to get that stuff off of the HUD. And away those go. Ta-da. We can now go ahead and say pressurize hangar right here and click this. Immediately, one of the lights turns to green to say, hey, we're now pressurizing the hangar. The vents in the walls begin pressurizing it, and once it is fully pressurized, all of the red lights go off and green lights go on to show you that this whole room has indeed been pressurized. And if the door opens, it depressurizes it again, so we can just demonstrate that. There we go. Ta-da! It'll automatically switch those lights back to red. One of the lights here on the control panel will stay green because the system is still set to try to pressurize the room, but you can see the main lights have gone to red. I'm actually quite happy with the ridiculousness of it. Floor in here is heavy armor though, that way you can hopefully land your ships. You might end up burning out a few lights. We have the connectors that link into the whole ship system here as well. Anyway, moving on from there, we have our welcome aboard sign, as well as a little light on top of it, which is the green illumination you see here. That light doesn't actually change color, it's just supposed to be a pleasant light. Actually, I think it should have been a slightly more blue. We might be seeing the green off of that. Let's actually go ahead and say it to depressurize, so it goes back to red. Yep, that was it. Anyway, let's go ahead and say depressurize airlock, because this area is now depressurized, and inside the airlock, the lighting has changed to red, indicating it's now depressurized. We can come inside here. In fact, we could leave that door open, and we'll tell it now pressurize airlock. It automatically closes that door, begins pressurizing the room, and once it is pressurized, our lovely little red light will shut off, and the green one will come on behind us to let us know all is safe and sound in here. And now we go into the main hall of the ship, which I'm quite happy with how this turned out. Let's just close it to be, well, make sure everything's set. You can pressurize the airlock from here too if it seems like it's being depressurized, and those buttons will of course close the other side doors too, just in case they've been left open. Anyway, main hallway on the ship, and you can see we actually have some little hallways darting out to the sides. This floor is symmetrical, but other floors not so much. Anyway, to the left here we have Sleeping 3 and Recreation 1. Sleeping 3 is a third sleeping area where we have just tons of my modded beds stuck in here. So you can go ahead and take a nappy poos into those if you would please. And then Recreation 1 is actually pretty much the only recreation on the ship. I didn't know if I'd add more when I first put it in, so it's called Recreation 1. It's a recreation area with a bunch of my desks here, so you can sit and browse the internet or whatever you please on your little PDA or whatever you want to call that on your hand, which also appears to disappear at some angles. Okay, that's odd. Anyway, heading out of this lovely little room, we can go across the hall to this area. There's Sleeping 1 and Sleeping 2. I guess I should have started over here, but hey, I read left to right, so I went to the left hallway right first. Anyway, let's walk in here. Pretty much the same thing you've seen. These will be exactly the same, just mirrors of each other. Nothing too special. If you're wondering what the vents here on the floor are, literally it's just for an air vent down there. That way all of the rooms stay pressurized. Go ahead and close that door off. Heading down the hallway more, which I'm very, very happy with. On our right, we have the medical area. Pop that open, and you can see we have 2 medical bays in here to allow us to respawn. 2 oxygen containers on the ceiling, a sort of waiting desk, that way if somebody needs to come in and just talk to somebody, they can stand here and talk to them or check in. Silly the idea that you'd be checking into a medical area on such a relatively small ship, but either way, got desks there, and then we have this sort of semi-wall off area here for people that are currently in recovery. I would have put a third bed here, but of course, that block is taken up by this catwalk block, which only takes a tiny bit, but you know, we don't have a compound block, so unfortunately I couldn't do that. Also, we do have 2 cryopods stuck on the ceiling. There are not enough cryopods on the ship for everyone, and the idea being that you just put people in there if they got sick. The ship is not actually intended for cryopodification of the full crew. Deep space exploration, you don't exactly want to put everyone into a cryo sleep on this ship. You'll have a few people left alive screaming, why did everyone else abandon us and go to sleepy buys? And in which, of course, those people probably go nutters and end up killing everybody. Anyway, here's the front of the ship. We'll double back a little bit and now head into the stairs area. And you'll see that a lot of the ship does have the name of wherever you're heading, as well as a light sort of matching that above it. Went through that the whole ship basically and tried to color code that. This has a glow below it, not from the light, but from another floor below, so we'll be seeing in a second. I also did hide a light over here because I found otherwise those were very, very dark areas. Anyhow, let's actually go into the stairs now. Popping that door open, thank you very much. Another air vent below us, and our stairs reaching up and up and up. You even have a control is up, down is reactors. So let's go down first off and head down to our reactor floor. Over a little bit of paneling, Jesus Christ. Into the reactor room, and nice and orange. It's also oxygenated from a vent right there. And yeah, very orange. We can even fly up and take a look back there. We have 6 large reactors stuck in here to keep this place up and running for a fair amount of time. And if you want to go ahead and copy and paste this ship directly into survival, it does have uranium in a lot of these. Also, we do have cargo containers on the ship, which I've given some ammo, so those turrets will actually function on the outside if you just want to copy it into survival and get started from pretty much scratch, except for with a pretty hefty ship. Let me go ahead and run ourselves back here, proving that you can indeed run under these. There we go. And we'll now head up the stairwell back to the other floors, because this ship actually has 3 main floors, not counting the reactor floor. So Habitation is where we started. This does have a loop around walkway here with nothing on it. It's just sort of there and a railing to make sure you don't fall down. But if we were to go ahead and start heading up this way now, we reach the technical floor. So we've gone from Habitation down to the reactor and then up to the technical floor, which again, stairs but no light this time. Couldn't really find a nice spot for the light, and that, who knows. Anyway, we got some nice lighting in here in a rather awkward looking room, or actually hallway. Almost imagine you could set up some desks here or something if you want to just have a sort of makeshift conference area or talk to people or work. I don't know, just sort of a secondary recreation area. Don't have any of that, though. We'll head over here to the refinery room first. As you can see, similar to the reactor room, it has a lot of orange lighting in it. Not quite as bright or as orange, but it is lit up. You can see we do have 2 refineries stuck in here, and each of them is rigged up with the yield modules. So it'll go ahead and give you more ingots per each bit of ore. Because you don't have too many of these, you only got these 2 refineries, I figured each one should be doing its job the best it can. Heading back behind it, we have a singular assembler for this ship, stuck behind all of these speed modules to speed it all up. Oop, bumping my head. And then a vent on top of that. And we also have a cargo container here, so you can easily access everything and put things in it. I also have a... that shouldn't be in the small cargo container. Anyway, we also have 2 work desks here, so if people wanted to sit and work, they could do so from here. Anyhow, let's go ahead and head out of this room and go into the research room. This is just sort of a work area I put together for the main bulk of the crew that wouldn't be working in the reactor room or in the refinery room. This is the research room. Part of the idea is this is a civilian ship. You could use it for whatever the civilians please. Everything from combat to research to exploration. So you might have some of your people sitting in here working away at these desks. And another nice view out the front, because this is all the way at the front of the ship again. We also have some more cryopods stuck up on the ceiling, as well as a completely useless oxygen generator sort of thing stuck up there. What is the actual name for it? Oxygen farm stuck up there. But I figured it sort of looked labby and techish, and I gave it an orange light to sort of break it up a little bit. And you can see, once again, we do have some oxygen flowing into this room. I also put the lights at sort of a spot where if you're sitting at a desk, most of the time you won't actually be able to see the light itself. It'll just illuminate the room and the walls from indirect lighting. I like it. Anyway, heading back out of here, we're going to head down this hallway now, through the makeshift recreation 2, and into the computer core. Ta-da! And when I was using the airlock earlier, I was actually using some of these timer blocks. So you can see I have a few of them actually color-coded. I have programmable blocks, so if you want to set up your TIM system, you can do that. Currently, they're not programmed in. And there's a bunch of timer blocks here that just don't have any programming in them at the current time. Like the other rooms, this room does indeed have an oxygen vent. And we can go ahead and head through this door, which will take us into the emergency control room. This is a sort of backup control where if the main bridge, considering it's the front of the ship, ends up being taken out, this is sort of nestled deeper into the ship, so it shouldn't have such issues. And you can go ahead and access and control the whole ship from here in theory. Not much of a view though, obviously. You do have some air vents set up, and they're tied directly into these oxygen containers and cargo containers, which, again, these little guys weren't supposed to have their own ammo supply. It's only supposed to be the larger ones. Anyway, we can also head through this door where you get one lonely bed. So if 2 of the crew manage to get in here and somehow manage to keep the ship flying, after the bridge and presumably a lot of the ship has been depressurized, well, they can take turns taking a nice little nap and a tiny little bed at the arse end of this ship. Let's close that off and carry back to the stairwell and head up to the next floor. It's a little bit of a walk, ain't it? But at least you know there's quite a few doors for any enemy boarding your ship to go through, and considering there is only one way on and off of this ship, and that is the hangar bay, they'd have quite the ways to walk. Anyway, heading all the way up to the top floor now, that is control and cargo. Yes, the cargo is actually on the top floor with the control room, and it is quite the hallway leading down there. But first, we're going to go through here into the bridge. And hello, bridge. I'm very, very happy here with how these lights turned out. I actually went and used an LCD screen and just set it to bright white halfway through building these and thinking, oh my god, this is a brilliant idea. Why haven't I done this before? This is brilliant. This is genius. I realized, actually, haven't I seen this idea before? So somebody has definitely gone ahead and set LCD screens to bright white or another color to make it look like a light before. I just happened to have forgotten until I built these on my own, rediscovering past things that other people have already discovered. Shame. But anyway, I came up with the idea to use them, and of course all of these little side lights as chandeliers and light this room up. Who knows, might have been done before, but I don't think I've seen that one. Who knows? It's a block-based game. Nothing is ever truly original, because I'm sure somebody else has already done it even if they didn't show it. Or maybe I saw it and forgot it, and it's drifted away into my subconscious. Anyhow, lots of lights in here to light this whole room up, which I'm very, very, very happy with how these turned out. I love them. Unfortunately, we do have some silliness where we have a light on top of a light right here, but we don't right here. We only have one light right here. Why is that? Oh, right, because it goes into the same block as this bottom light right here, so we couldn't have two of them unless we had compound blocks. Right. Anyway, moving on from that, we got the captain's chair up there, a few seats for other people to sit about down there, as well as 4 work desks there, and the pilot's chair right here. I was going to sink it down into the ground, similar to the backup control area, but I found that wouldn't really work, considering the floors here are pretty much only 1 block thick, meaning we would have been cutting into the research area below us, which didn't exactly work out, as I'd finished that one off pretty much with all the piping and stuff in its ceiling already. Anyway, heading on down this beautiful hallway, which actually somehow ends up reminding me of like the old Deus Ex games for some reason. Not exactly sure why. I never even played them, just saw some footage of them. For some reason it always reminds me of that. We get to the cargo area here, which we actually put behind a nice glass window. So we can pop the cargo door open, and in we go into a well-ventilated cargo area with 6 large cargo containers. Not the most storage in the world, but not the least either. So there you go, that's our ship. That's a pretty full tour of it, and it's reasonably well lit in here. The back walls behind it, if we were actually to walk up this and walk all the way around, you can see there's some space back there, but you can't really get back there, and we got it paneled off because there were pipes that you would see otherwise. A bit dark behind it, almost like you expect an alien to be sneaking about. And those lights at the end of the hallway were not flickering, it was just the distance where the lights just stop rendering after a certain distance. Boop, see? Makes it spooky almost. Anyway, last thing to show you before we actually maybe fly the ship about a little bit is flying up here. You can actually see some cutaways of this ship, and in the dark they're actually quite interesting. But we can go ahead and let our in-game character's eyes adjust, and you see our beautiful, beautiful ship cut away. And you'll also notice I filled in a lot of the blank spaces. This is something Rivvion did, the same guy who came up with the idea of the, what you will call these things, the hinged pieces here, or at least he's the first one I saw use it, I should say. Maybe he is the very first inventor of such a way of using these blocks. Either way, he showed me some of his ships recently, and he had all the excess space filled in. Usually, if you've seen my ships, you know I usually have tons and tons of dirty, scuzzy, blocky crawl spaces. But seeing his stuff and realizing just how beautiful it looked in the cutaway, I went through and filled the whole ship full of it, which means we've increased the weight of this ship greatly more than it would have been otherwise. But I think it's worth it for these cutaways, and of course in theory it also gives us a little bit more armor. And yeah, I just love the cutaways. Cutaways are so awesome. They're a great way to show off the way your ship's put together. I mean, look at that. You got our airlocks here, got our lab here. It just reminds me of all those little sketchbooks. If you've ever, you know, when you're a kid, you often get these books that are like, the cutaway of this, the cutaway of that. It reminds me of some of those, like, submarines or spaceships or whatever. Or Star Wars cutaways. I adore them so much. Anyway, I really love the way that turned out. I also did a top-down cutaway, so you can see just how much stuff we had from the top. This is actually the research room right here, refinery room, that weird hallway going through the computer core. And we can't actually see too well, but in there is... whoop, oh, hello! The backup control area. Anyhow, what else do we got? Anything else to show on this cutaway besides the mountains and mountains of thruster components and, well, it's not really components, is it? Thrusters in here, as well as the hydrogen tanks in here to try to make sure everything will stay fueled. And of course, remember, at the sides of the hangar bay, we did have all of those oxygen generators, which in theory should be pumping out more hydrogen as we go ahead and use up the hydrogen in the containers. And I did put some ice in those as well. Moving on from this cutaway, I did do one more floor down, just because I thought it might be interesting to see just how straightforward and symmetrical that first floor I put in was. This is the stairs right here that led down from the hangar bay, straight into the sleeping 1, 2, and 3, and recreation 1. Anyhow, I think that's about it for buzzing about. You can see we did have some fun gyroscopes there. And of course all the ones next to the reactors. Let's buzz back down here, buzz through the ship once. Woo! Those cutaways sure make showing off all of this stuff a bit easier, eh? Did we have room in here? No, we didn't. The ship does have jump drives stuck in here too, if you didn't see those in the cutaways. There's a fair few stuck around inside this mess of stuff. There is still obviously some crawl space in here, but it became so finicky trying to fill it in, and because the ship isn't symmetrical, I figured we'd better not just click and drag through it all. Anyway, let's go ahead, buzz ourselves back up to the cockpit. I'm not sure where we left our character. Oh, good, right here. It should be easy enough to get back to the bridge. It's not necessarily a cockpit when it's got so much excess space. Let's take this ship for a quick spin, shall we? First off, it's not very polite to go ahead and fly the ship around with the hangar doors open, so let's close those. There we go. That's pretty nice to see those doors closing from a distance, I think. And let's start moving this ship as soon as we actually remember to convert it to ship, because I built it as a station. It helps cut down on issues. And you see, the ship, for such a big thing, has a fair amount of maneuverability. As for acceleration, it's not the fastest in the world, but neither is it the slowest. We're already up to about 30 meters per second right here, right now. So we can go ahead and start buzzing around with pretty much ease. Well, a fair amount of ease. As for its maneuvering, or at least should I say it's stopping itself from strafing. What is this? It's cornering, I guess it would be. It does have a little bit of an issue there where you can see we have the 4 side thrusters, but unfortunately they're not exactly doing as much work as I'd like. You end up drifting a lot when you turn, so if we were to do another sharp turn right here, we end up drifting a fair amount before we finally stop. Also, I'm seeing smoke come off the ship. I don't know what that's about, but I'm sure it won't be there once we copy and paste the ship and put the blueprint up. It must be something that was just loose inside the ship has come free and is causing us a little bit of grief somewhere inside. Because I don't see anything else going wrong outside. As for the weapons, if you would like to see those in action, we could go ahead and stop the... Don't freak out too much on us now, ships. Anyway, as for the weapons, if you'd like to see those in action, really quick way to do that would be to copy and paste this ship in. So we'll go ahead and give the ship 1 copy. And paste it in right. I think it's still moving a little bit, so let's give it some fun there. And now we can do our Shift K again. Oop. Some laggities here, actually. We have to wait for the other ship to appear. Any second now it should. There we go. So Shift K, select either of these. We'll select the farther away one. And select everything and tell you to be owned by those dirty, dirty space pirates. And away the weapons shall go, firing at one another. In fact, we can do an F6 and try to hop back into the cockpit before everything goes terribly wrong. And actually try to make a bit of an attack run on the enemy. Ooh, there's some weapons fire coming in at us. Come on, turrets, return fire. And of course, this ship does have a small issue where the front and the back of it have, well, they're just not as well armed as the bottom and top, aka the left and right, since the slanted walls. It's got pretty good firing arcs, but if you can get in front of it, you'll definitely reduce its ability to do damage to you. And yes, it does have braking thrusters too at the front. They're just not as organic as the back ones that I was showing. Also, I think we might need to turn our ship around as we've taken some damage here. Oh god, turn faster, turn faster, turn faster. There we go. Fire away, new cannons. There we go. So we should have taken minimal damage on this side, meaning we should now be far more likely to win any sort of battle. We're in front of it. We're still drifting a bit because I got our speed up, but hey, I'd say overall we're having a pretty decent and relatively successful time, and in time we should be victorious. Remember, this ship doesn't have the most firepower in the world. That was part of the reason why it's a civilian ship, because the small weapons here are, well, relatively small. They're not just some massive doomsday device setup. So, you can see the enemy has been, well, pretty heavily devastated by our better piloting. Go figure, the ship with somebody piloting is better than the completely unpiloted ship. And you see we did take some damage. We lost one of our little turrets here. These are all piped up, by the way. It actually does pipe all the way in and through, so no issues should arise there. And they're getting the job done, lickety-split, without issue. Oops. Except for maybe this guy. He's wiggling, which means he might have... Okay, he's just wiggling. Everything's fine. I'll rotor lock those before we put it up on the workshop. That might help. Anyway, we did take some damage down here, but overall, I think we've done relatively fine. Our stairwell's been breached. That's a little bit sad. Does mean now every floor would be vented as we open those doors. Things to take into consideration as building bigger and better ships in the future. But overall, I think we found ourselves successful. We definitely beat the enemy pretty well. Unfortunately, can't seem to tell our turrets to target, oh boy, enemy weapons first. They seem to be just dead set on slowly burning their way through the enemy ship and getting to the enemy reactors, which might take a while. Yes, indeedy. Or have they made it already? Nope, they haven't made it already. Because if we go through the floor, you wouldn't even know trouble was happening down here. Anyway, guys, I think that'll be it for this episode of... Wait, this isn't an episode, is it? That'll be it for this video. If you'd like to go ahead and get your hands on this large civilian ship, you can go ahead and do so by following the link in the description down below. It'll take you over to the Steam Workshop, where you'll be able to subscribe to this. There'll also be a link to the weapons mod in the description down below. I'm using like the Mexpex big cluster of them that was recently released, or I say semi-recently released. Anyhow, that is that. Thanks a bunch for watching. If you like this video and like this ship, consider liking and subscribing. Also consider sharing it so we can get more views, because more views equal more monies, at least in theory. Of course, there's also those Patreon and PayPal links in the description below if you want to more directly support me, my ships, my mods, or anything else I happen to do. Anyway, that is it. Thanks once again for watching, and I shall see you all next time. Ooh, it just caught on fire, and the fire went away. Okie dokie. Ta-ta.